Mr. Transformers 96 here with another video where I'm going to be talking about a newly shown Hot Toys figure. This time we have Peacemaker from the Peacemaker show, or you can basically use it from the Suicide Squad movie. So before we get into the figure, because there's a lot to say and talk about when it comes to this figure, but just character-wise in general, obviously with him debuting in the Suicide Squad, the movie itself, I enjoy. It's not my favorite thing, but it's a solid movie. His character in it, I was completely fine with his character in it. However, hearing that he was going to get a show, I thought that he was just about the least one that I would have liked to see a show for. So I was not looking forward to his show. I did watch it though, when it debuted, and I actually really enjoyed it. I think his show was super positive. I thought it was really good. There's some jokes that are misses, but the overall story and characters are entertaining. It always kept my attention, and always looked forward to when the new episode dropped. So I actually really enjoyed the show, and it made me, have a greater respect for the Peacemaker character going forward too. So, after the finale, which was like last week, I was fingers crossed that Hot Toys would make a figure for him, and they finally have, which is great. Now, the figure that they made, though, is not the best, and that's putting it lightly. I think that this is one of the strangest figures that they've done. First off, and I'll talk about the weapon situation, because there's some interesting stuff to talk about with that. But just let's start off with the first thing that just jumps out at you when you see this, and it's that face sculpt. He has, it may seem like he's got two heads, not the case. He's got one head sculpt with an interchangeable helmet and an attachable ton, so you can have a ton in or no ton face sculpt. The expression that they went with is his eyes are squinted and looking to one side, and his mouth is like screaming. So he's got more of an angry face sculpt, I would say, than anything. I don't think this really represents the character. He can be expressive, but it's more in a goofy way, I would say. He isn't just like incredibly angry, and this is one of the angriest face sculpts I've ever seen. I don't think that this really fits the character, nor do I think it looks particularly good. It looks realistic. I'll definitely say that. It looks, on par with the quality of Hot Toys realistic-wise, but I don't think it actually looks like John Cena, and considering the great majority of his face is covered, and of course there's no hair to do, this should really be easy to make it look like John Cena, because they really just have to focus on the eyes, and then from the nose down. If they can, get that, then they're good. They don't have to worry about even having the proportions on the head be wrong, or the hair look odd, or anything like that. So this should have been a little bit easier for them, and it is just not good. I really don't see John Cena really at all, to be honest. I think that the face looks really long, too. I wish that they would have toned down the expression. I'm not one of those people that hates expression. There's a lot of Hot Toys collectors that really do hate expression on figures. I'm not one of them. I really enjoy expression on figures. The General Zod figure is one of my favorite face sculpts. I really love it. And so I have no problem with expression in general, but this one just does not look great. This angle is the best angle of any of them, in my opinion, when it comes to the face sculpt. I think it's because it's the most to the side, so you get a little bit more of the jawbone, and it doesn't make it look so long. I think a lot of the front-up face sculpts, the jaw line is too thin, and then it just makes him look like he's got a really long face rather than a bulky, muscular face. So I think that that's a big issue. So to be honest, I don't think that they got the structure right, and I think the expression is not fitting of the character. And then lastly, I think that ton is ridiculous. I don't know what that's supposed to be, because if you're doing like a playful, dumb kind of ton out, like him and Vigilante blowing the stuff up in the woods or something, okay, I get that. But this is a deeply angry face sculpt, so including a ton with it is just ridiculous. I think it's really stupid looking, to be honest. So I'm incredibly disappointed by this. Now, if they were going to do something where they'd have a regular face sculpt unhelmeted, and then they did an expressive, face sculpt with the helmet on, that would be great. But unfortunately, this is all we've got. There isn't an unhelmeted head sculpt, which that on its own, I think, is a big issue too, because, especially in the show, he didn't wear the helmet that much. There's certainly plenty of screen time with him wearing it, but for the majority of his scenes, he does not have the helmet on, or a helmet on. So I think that it's really necessary to get an unhelmeted head sculpt here too, but that is just not the case. Now, the head sculpt's just the majority of what there is to talk about with this guy. So, diverting from the head sculpt discussion, the rest of the figure I think looks nice. The tailoring looks pretty good. He's got a very simple costume. There's just a lot of blank space on it, and it's all just regular cloth for the most part. You got a couple of areas where you have kind of faux leather design pieces on it. So the costume itself is very basic, but they nailed it. It's exactly what it should be. Now, going over the arms. So obviously with any character that has bare arms or legs or anything like that, Hot Toys always has a choice, and they seem just to go one way or the other. They don't have a direct, a definite thing that they do. They either pick rubber or they pick joints, and it's really hit or miss on what they'll do. In this case, they went with joints, which I personally prefer. I will always prefer a visible joint rather than rubber. Obviously, it has slightly less of a realistic look because you can see the joint there rather than it being seamless, but it allows you far greater articulation, first of all, and second of all, and the most important thing is it's durable. This is something that will not deteriorate. With the rubber, it absolutely will deteriorate after time, even if it is a long time, and even if you keep it, not posed, but especially if you pose it, that rubber is definitely going to show cracks after a while. So I'm happy that they went with the visible joints for the arms. The one thing I'd say, though, is the arms could be bigger. I definitely think that they could have went a little bulkier with the sculpt there. It's, they're muscular, but I don't think like John Cena level muscular. So I think that they should have definitely bulked up the arms a little bit further than what they did. So now let's go over the accessories weapon-wise in particular. So in these pictures, if you've noticed, he has weapons in most of the images, but they're all the handheld, weapons. So his axe and his sword. Now both of those are used in the Suicide Squad movie, but not particularly much. His main weapon is his handgun and just firing weapons in general. That's what he uses the most, especially in his show. In the show, there is a sequence where he does use the sword, so that is from that, and obviously it comes with Eagly. We'll talk about that in a minute here. So he does use the sword in the show, but from my recollection, and I am almost 100% sure on this, he doesn't use the axe at all in the show. That is purely from the scene where him and Bloodsport are having that killing people competition. So that just is a little inaccurate. He does, as you can see, have a sculpted gun, but I am pretty sure that's not removable. And the reason I say that is that in every single shot of this figure, there's not a single shot of that gun out of the holster where he's holding it. Not a one. And on top of that, on Sideshow's website, their description of the figure, when it goes into the weapons, only lists the axe and the sword, does not say anything about the gun itself. So I'm pretty sure that that's really just for show to be holstered, and it's not something that he can actually hold, which is a major disappointment because even though we've seen him use the axe and the sword, I think that he just looks odd with those. That's not the type of thing that he usually uses. So I wouldn't want to display him with those weapons. The gun is definitely what I want to display him with. Now, this is not necessarily Hot Toys' fault. Warner Brothers, I don't know how long ago, I think relatively recently, put in place kind of a mandate when it comes to merchandise that they didn't want realistic guns being included with figures. And up to this point, I thought that was relegated to the figures that are a little lower end and can be meant for kids. However, I'm pretty surprised on the high end, over $200 market figure wise, it seems to still be the case here, because I think that they were unable to actually give him the full weapon for the actual figure himself. So super disappointed on that. That makes this really a bummer. I feel like this figure is just bummer on top of bummer. Base wise, he's got your standard rectangular base. They went with that kind of Peacemaker, almost like a rusted American flag top on it, which I'm not a big fan of. I wish that they went with something that could work for both the show and the movie, so that depending on how you display him or in what collection you display him in, it would be the same. However, they did just go straight with how they have the base printing design set up right now, it really doesn't work for Suicide Squad display, nor any really other display, and they're not, I'm pretty darn sure, they're not going to be doing any other Peacemaker figures. If they do any, it would be Vigilante, but I doubt it. So with that, it's just something that, if you had a whole Peacemaker display, that they would look great together base-wise, but with that not being the case, we're most likely relegated to the base looking out of place in your DC display, or you just replacing the base that you display him on. So that's a little disappointing, but it's relatively mild. The other and kind of last accessory to talk about is Eagly. It's nice that he comes with a representation of Eagly here. I think that he looks pretty nice. Hot Toys never does amazing when it comes to their animal figures whenever they rarely do one, and this is no exception. It looks good, but it doesn't look incredible. I do really like, though, the fact that he comes with interchangeable wings, so you can have them with the wings in or the wings fully spread. I think that is pretty cool. So just to go over the pre-order details, it has gone on pre-order. It's $275. Its estimated ship date is between May and July of 2023. So a year and a couple months out. Not a horrible release date. The price, I think, is overpriced, especially since this figure is lackluster in many ways. So overall, I was wanting a Peacemaker figure, but I think I'm going to pass on this one purely because it's a letdown. That face sculpt is bad on multiple levels, and then the disappointment of not being able to display him with his gun is super disappointing as well. You never know, maybe you can unholster it, and they just didn't want to show it in the pictures because of Warner Brothers kind of mandate when it comes to that. However, to not list it in the accessories, that's very odd. That's what really makes me think that it's not removable. So overall, this is a disappointing figure. Would have definitely liked just so much more when it comes to the head sculpt. Who knows, if they ever state that they are going to do another head sculpt with this figure that'll be unmasked and just a newly designed face sculpt, I would be definitely for this. But without that happening, I can't imagine that I'd pick this thing up at regular retail, but I'll probably always look out for it for a deal or something, because I really did enjoy the show, and I'm looking forward to season 2. So there you go, that's my thoughts on this new Hot Toys figure. Let me know what you guys think of it, and thanks so much for watching.